Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, join us as we gather around the virtual water cooler to talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, some television, all sorts of good stuff. And joining me here on this glorious day is the glorious one himself, one Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, I'm doing terrific. I had another dream about the return of Han last night, and I woke up feeling all ghibli.
You are far too into the return of Han. You are just far too into this. Hey, listen, guys, speaking of stuff that we're all into, we got some things to talk about here today. What are the chances that Joker beats Black Panther's record for most Oscar wins for a comic book related film? Disney Plus is blowing up way faster than even they thought they would. Speaking of Disney Plus, Mandalorian has got a release month at least for season 2 coming in October, as well as they're talking about doing some spin-off shows, things like that. That stuff and a whole bunch more. But before we get to any of that stuff, let's go right off the top and talk about this. 2 brand new trailers. Brand new trailers has come out, and the first one we're going to talk about is this. You know, Rob, I'm a fan of Minions. I am. More specifically, I'm actually more of a fan of Despicable Me, and I certainly love the Minions in it. But there's a new Minions movie coming. Why they're calling it Minions instead of Despicable Me, I'm not really sure. But it's Minions: The Rise of Gru, and the first trailer for it has indeed just dropped online just before we started the show this morning. And it is, again, The Rise of Gru. We get a young Gru. I believe it's still being voiced by Steve Carell. I don't know that for certain, but just listening to it, it sounds like it's still Steve Carell. Maybe it's not. I'm not sure. And we get our first look at it. Now, look, I wasn't actually a big fan of the Minions movie. That was okay, right. But I do love Despicable Me, and I love this whole kind of world. This trailer made me smile. I thought it was cute. I dug it. I thought it was nice. It played into all the things that I like about the Minions and that I like about Despicable Me. And listen, I'll admit it. I even forgot this movie was coming. I forgot this movie was even coming. So, I mean, I'm guilty of that. But listen, I actually thought it's not the greatest trailer, whatever, but it's cute. It's charming. It made me smile. So yeah, I'll go off and saying I'm looking forward to seeing this. Now, I didn't love the last Despicable Me movie, the one where Gru finds his brother and all that kind of stuff. Gotta admit, I wasn't the biggest fan in the world of it. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. But this looks like it's got some good charm. I'm into it. What did you think about it?
Well, I think cute is the operative word. I think you're right. I mean, you just had me watch it. I saw the Super Bowl spot.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the same, but it, like you said, the world of Minions, the Despicable Me world was, as far as animated worlds go, how can you not like it? I mean, and I thought this trailer they're certainly milking the concept, but I like this character. It looks good. It didn't blow me away though.
Right, I like the idea of him trying to prove himself as a supervillain, and I like what they call them, the Vicious Six, or something like that. That looked clever. I mean, there's some cute stuff there. It's got potential. I'm not saying it's like on my top 10 most anticipated films of the year or anything, but I think it has some potential. Question is, guys, have you had a chance to watch this new Minions trailer? If so, what did you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or are you in the middle about it? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. There's also another trailer that dropped. This one, a little bit unexpected. I mean, we knew this movie was coming. They announced a while ago and surprised everybody that Chris Rock was going to be executive producing and starring in a Saw movie, which caught us off guard. And Rob, I remember you and I were talking about this on the show, and it seemed like a weird fit, but kind of at the same time, kind of appealing, looking forward to seeing what they do. Well, out of nowhere, the first trailer for this new Saw movie, which is titled Spiral. It's titled Spiral from the Book of Saw. The first trailer dropped today. And Rob, I'll tell you what, I liked it. I thought it had a really nice feel to it. I mean, the Samuel L. Jackson last part of "You want to play a game, motherfucker?" I mean, that
Right.
it was like, oh, I get it. That's Samuel L. Jackson's line, but putting it in the first trailer felt a little forced. But I think Samuel L. Jackson's going to rule in this movie. Like, I think this is the type of movie that's exactly for him. Can't wait to see it. And I really did buy into Chris Rock, and I cannot remember the name of the actor, but the dude from Handmaid's Tale is in it as well. And as Chris Rock's partner, I guess, I really like that dude. I can't remember his name, but I really like him in Handmaid's Tale.
I think it's Max Minghella.
Is that what his name is?
Anthony Minghella's son. I think so. Yeah. Who he was also in The Social Network, and director of The English Patient and Cold Mountain, and
his dad.
Talented Mr. Ripley. That was his dad who passed away. But I love that guy, and I think the two of them, as a matter of fact, I thought Chris Rock, as he's aging, is filling out. He looks like a badass. And I really like his stern expressions. Like, I've been a huge fan of Chris Rock all the way back to New Jack City in the 80s when he played the crack addict. I think it was Mookie. And I think this trailer, I think it looks great. Give me a cop procedural that's also a slash horror movie, the way Seven was and every other Seven ripoff that came out after that. The one thing, though, John, as much as I like this trailer, I'll tell you something I didn't like about it. The blue and teal color timing of the film. Everything was blue and teal. It looked like, the Michael Bay School of Cinematography. And even the poster that they dropped, is blue and teal. And my problem with that, especially for low budget horror, is, again, my favorite word, it really takes away from the verisimilitude of the movie for me, because that color scheme doesn't exist in the real world. So maybe they're going for a stylistic heightened dream sequence kind of thing. But for police procedural horror, I love the desaturation of Fincher's Seven. And that's kind of what this was begging for. And it was like, it just seemed overlit to me. But the rest of it, that's a minor complaint. I think it looks really intriguing. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, I am in. I want to see this movie. And, I have a great affinity for at least the first 3 Saw films. Then they get a little silly. But I thought James Wan and Lee Wanell's initial Saw was terrific. And I really liked Saw 2 and 3. I thought it was kind of the Star Wars of low-budget horror.
What do you think about the angle they seem to be taking with this, of the notion of this time the killer, who I'm sure we'll find out is named Jigsaw, is specifically targeting
there is a subtle, maybe not so subtle, political message in all of this. I think, there's a lot of police officers that do a lot of good, that put themselves on the front line every day. And the fact that Chris Rock and Sam Jackson are cops, I think and they're black. There's an interesting element there. I think it adds maybe a political wrinkle. I think the Saw movies, the reason that I've always been interested in them is there's always been a political or a sort of an angle about you must love your life, and if you don't respect and love the world that we live in, then we're going to play a game, and we're going to see if you're really deserving of that life. And it looks like Chris Rock had an idea that sort of fits in with that overall concept. And I'm hoping that that's one of the things that always attracted me to the franchise. It wasn't just a slasher franchise. There was something a little bit more going on. Maybe I'm reading into it more than I should, but that was one of the things I always appreciated about it. And I think there's absolutely something like that in this movie. And I like the fact that while it's not a Blumhouse movie, because Saw is Lionsgate, but I really like that it looks like there's something more going on. There's something intellectually interesting happening. I know I'm saying that about a Saw movie, but I've always felt that was true about the whole franchise. And I look at this and I'm like, this is the kind of trailer I love, because it wasn't really on my radar. I was like, okay, I know Chris Rock had an idea for a Saw movie, but this comes out and suddenly my interest is piqued. This looks like there's something going on. Chris Rock had an idea. I always hark back to what Ryan Coogler did with Creed. I always pull out Creed as an example. This looks like a reinvention of a franchise that might have run its course, but it looks like, wow, somebody who was a fan of this franchise has now injected new life into it. So my fingers are crossed that this is good, man. It looks interesting to me.
I like it too. I'm bought into it. And question is, guys, what did you think about this new Spiral from the Book of Saw trailer with Chris Rock, Samuel L. Jackson? I thought it looked pretty damn good. How did you guys feel about it? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With all that out of the way, let's now move on to our main topics today. How do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, see, it's really rather simple. You guys come up with our main topics by going anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Just fill it out with your topic or question, hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question picked to be a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Matthew Kircher, who writes, now that music biopics are becoming a big thing, now it's officially reported that the rock band Kiss is going to get a biopic scheduled for 2021. It's reported that the movie will go through the events through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. What are your thoughts about this? And do you think a Kiss biopic can work? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, you read that right, ladies and gentlemen. Kiss, who I can't remember or not, they did a horror movie once, and I even believe they might have battled the Harlem Globetrotters at one point in the 70s. But anyway, Kiss, the rock band, is aiming to have their own biopic. Now, the interesting thing about this is this. This is Kiss saying, we want to make a biopic about ourselves. We're seeing all this great heat we're seeing these other movies get, and we want to make one for ourselves. And anyway, here is the quote from their producer. Their music producer said this. He was on being interviewed, and this is from the website Louder, who writes, speaking on Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon, McGee, he's their producer, said, hopefully in the next week we'll have a company behind it. And we'll start finishing the script. And hopefully by the time we end, we'll have a movie finished for July of next year. McGee revealed that producer Mark Canton, who worked on the movie 300, is involved in the project. If it goes to schedule, the untitled movie should land in July of 2021, the same month Kiss are set to play their final show in their hometown of New York City. So, Rob, there's a couple of interesting things here. There's a couple of interesting things here that I want to touch on for a second. The first of which is, okay, Kiss wants to do a biopic. All right. Listen, I'm not big. Everybody knows I'm not all that big on the notion of musician biopics. I'm more interested in other people. But Kiss would be an interesting one. They are legends. And their exploits and mayhem off the stage outrival even the ones they do on the stage. So there's that. The problem I have with this story, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but there seems to be this real misguided understanding about how the movie business works. Like, first of all, I don't like the notion of somebody overseeing, producing, and directing and being the main people behind their own biopic. There's something about that to me that says, I wonder if this is going to be, washed a little bit, if this is going to be nice and sparkly clean, and just kind of conveying the things they want to convey. There's that part. We've seen it before. It can be fine. But the other part of this seems to be, like, you don't really understand how the movie business works, do you? Number one, they're saying they're going to release this movie in July of 2021. They have no studio attached. They don't have a finished script. But they're saying, how hard can movies be? I mean, movies are easy, right? We'll just finish it off. Like, not taking into account, it seems like they don't understand. Once we get a studio involved, they're going to want to take a look at that script. And then they're going to have their notes on that script. And they're going to do the things that they want to do with that script too. And I don't know, Rob, it just feels like kind of an unrealistic expectation that they're saying, we're doing it ourselves. We're going to have it out for next summer. No, we have no studio attached. No, we don't even have a finished script, but la 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 la. I don't know. And now, granted, a biopic about Kiss is not something that would require 6 months of post-production. It's not something that would require a lot of heavy visual effects, depending on what they want to do. So, I mean, it's not the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in the world, but it seems a little bit unrealistic. Rob, number one, what do you think about the concept of a Kiss biopic, which I think could be pretty cool in principle? But what do you think of that? And then also, what do you think about these goals and targets they seem to have?
First of all, John, Kiss was the first rock concert I ever went to in support of 1979 Dynasty.
You're in the Kiss Army.
And then I was in the Kiss Army, and of course that was following their solo albums where Ace Frehley sang the seminal song Back in the New York Groove, and Dynasty had I Was Made for Loving You, Baby. Come on, man. We're talking Kiss. Now, here's what I would do. If I want it to be more like a Rocket Man movie where it's like a total phantasmagoria where you actually see Gene Simmons' character rise up from hell and Paul Stanley comes down from the stars and like Peter Criss is a werecat, coming from the African felt. And they play the whole, and then they all meet in New York, these fantasy, and of course, Ace Frehley, I guess he's an astronaut. So maybe Paul Stanley he's the star child, but Ace Frehley is the astronaut. I don't know how it's going to work, but it could be great. It could be great. It could be great. But yes, I mean, to me, the one thing about Kiss is as much as I was part of the Kiss Army, and as a kid, how could you not be? And I think Dynasty was the last time they had their makeup on with the original lineup. And then they changed to Unmasked after that, I think. But I do think that Kiss was always kind of a contrived band. Like, they were put together. It was always shamelessly commercial. And it's not like it was the school of Hard Knocks. I mean, maybe it was, but Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park was that TV movie they made.
Yep.
Kiss has always been shameless. I think I was in the 4th grade when Kiss Alive came out, and when every kid went to each other's birthdays, we gave everybody Kiss Alive. That's what you got when you were 10 years old. I mean, it was like a rite of passage. I swear to God, it was Kiss Alive, and then it was later the Scorpions Love Drive. And every young boy got them. It was kind of like getting a lightsaber, but different. And I just, while I think it could be cool, I just, like you said, I don't know if a band produces their own biopic. I think it's kind of like, it is a very Kiss thing to do, though. Knowing them, they'll make the movie, no studio will want it, and they'll release it in theaters anyway. And the whole Kiss Army will show up. Or what they'll do is they'll go play concerts, and then they'll show the movie as part of it, like a Kevin Smith tour. They'll figure it out. They'll figure out some way to market the hell out of this.
To that point, one of the interesting things about this story is the fact that they are one of the reasons they're targeting July of 2021 is they've just kicked off their final tour. They say this is their retirement tour. And their final show is going to be in New York City in July of 2021. So I think it looks like they're trying to coincide having a movie come out to coincide with their absolute final show that they're doing before they retire and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, man.
Dude,
it's interesting.
How great if their ultimate encore is Back in the New York Groove. I mean, yeah. I'd want to be at that concert. That'd be awesome.
So the question here is, guys, what do you think about the idea of a Kiss biopic? Are you down for it? What do you think about the idea of them just kind of coordinating their own biopic? What do you think about their timeline, considering they don't actually have a finished script and they don't have a studio attached at this point? But who knows? Maybe optimism springs eternal, Rob. Guys, what do you think about all this? Jump down to the comment section below and leave us your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our second main topic today. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Samuel Pole, who writes, so it was just announced in an earnings call that Disney Plus already has 26 million subscribers. As a matter of fact, it's not 26, it's like 28.6. Anyway, this is especially impressive since Disney wasn't expecting to hit this number until well after 2020. Hulu and ESPN Plus also showed impressive growth. With these kinds of great numbers out of the gate, is it fair to say that Disney is likely in the safe zone as we evaluate the streaming wars in 2020 as other services like HBO Max launch? All right, thanks for sending that in, man. And these are stunning numbers. These are stunning numbers. So Bob Iger on an earnings call revealed that their subscriptions have now topped 28 million subscribers. All right. To put that into a little bit of context, just a little bit of context, their initial projections for their growth had them hitting 20 million subscribers by the end of 2020. They were projecting to hit 20 million subscribers by the end of 2020. Here we are in February. They've hit 28 point, I believe it's 0.6, could be 0.5, something like that anyway. This is especially interesting to me, Rob, when you take into account the fact that a lot of people, including myself, were wondering, you know, they came out strong with Mandalorian. They came out really strong with Mandalorian. However, once Mandalorian ended, they didn't really have anything strong ready to follow up. And a lot of people, like myself, thought, you know, you should have had one of the MCU shows ready to go within a month of Mandalorian ending, you know, to keep that positive momentum going. And there was a lot of talk and a lot of speculation, including on this show, talking about, could this negatively affect Disney Plus? Could we see a lot of people sign up, now start to unsubscribe and all that kind of stuff as a result, you know, of Mandalorian being done and that big initial push being done? But apparently, Rob, it hasn't had, if it's had any effect, it's been very small. Very small. And I think one of the things that this points us to, Rob, is the fact that people really weren't just signing up for Mandalorian. Like, if we operate on the assumption that everybody was signing up for Disney Plus specifically for Mandalorian, then yes, the ending of Mandalorian would have seen not a tragic drop-off, but a somewhat significant drop-off in subscribers after Mandalorian is done. I think, Rob, what this tells us is that we have underestimated just how many people signed up for Disney Plus just for that library. I think a lot of us have underestimated how many people have signed up for the service exclusively for the incredible library they have. Because a lot of people like me, Rob, were really focused more on the new shiny. What's the new shiny? The new shiny's Mandalorian. Great. And then we got a new shiny of Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then a new shiny of a new Loki, and then a new shiny of I think a lot of people like me were kind of focused on that is the heart of Disney Plus. But with just one show that's now been over for a while, their subscriber base continues to grow at a rate that is even shocking Bob Iger at this point, like blowing away all their expectations. Rob, let me ask you this. You look at numbers like these, you look at this type of growth that is just far exceeding even what their most optimistic expectations were. What do you personally attribute to this to, and what does this tell you about the state that they're in right now?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I think you're selling yourself and us short, because we did talk about the fact that it is a repository for an entire studio's content. Yeah. You know, and one of the things I have to say, this is a great streaming platform. They have done a wonderful job with their
user interface.
Great user interface. They've added extra special features. I find myself, I always talk about how Elizabeth, one of the first things I found her watching, my girlfriend Elizabeth, was That Darn Cat from 1965. And I started watching it. You know, they've got National Geographic, Pixar, Star Wars, Marvel, of course. And it's a really great product. And it's priced really well. And I think, you know, they've also got a lot of subscribers that are signing on. Was it Verizon that you got a free year of Disney Plus? But I think what it really shows is that, look, Disney as a brand is sort of ubiquitous in everyone's lives, whether you want to watch Disney animation, whether you want to watch Disney live action films, or now all of the things that they've acquired. As a destination spot, when you go to Disney Plus, you're getting, you know what you're getting. It's just, it's got brand recognition. And when you get there, it is like the equivalent of Disneyland as far as streaming services go. You just jump around, and I find their content to be somewhat delightful. Like, you get in there and you just feel good. It's not like Netflix, where I go to Netflix and I'm like, what the hell am I going to watch? You know, it's overwhelming and I don't know what to do. But when you get to Disney, I don't know if they had psychologists probably figuring out how to make this user interface, brainwashing you when you get there, so it just puts a smile on your face. But I think it's a really great product, and it's a testament to Bob Iger. And I'll tell you what was really interesting. You know how we were talking about Kenobi yesterday on the show? Bob Iger was saying in this earnings report, he was talking about the future of Star Wars being streaming, but he didn't mention Kenobi. He talked about a second season of Mandalorian, but he didn't say anything about Kenobi, which I would have assumed.
The Cassian Andor show, but you're right, he did not mention the Obi-Wan Kenobi series.
He didn't mention Kenobi, and I was like, huh. That's interesting, considering they haven't announced a launch date for the Cassian Andor series. And I was like,
Well, now, just to catch everybody up to speed, if you guys, for those of you who didn't watch our show yesterday, Rob and I were both talking about the fact that we've heard whispers, although I really don't give a lot of weight to them right now, but we have heard whispers that this retooling of Obi-Wan is actually not to just change the script up for the series, but they've actually made a decision to make it a feature film, and that's what Rob's referring to here, which could be fascinating.
You know, and that would wind up on Disney Plus anyway.
Yes, it would.
So whether it's a streaming show or not, I mean, what I'm saying is, on its way to Disney Plus, it could pick up $1 billion at the box office. I'll bet somebody did. So, you know, Disney is they test everything. And I remember when I was working on the Tron DVD back in the early 2000s for the 20th anniversary of the film, they polled mothers 5 and under asking, are you excited for the release of Tron? And mothers 5 and under were like, what's Tron? I mean, mothers with children 5 and under. And they were like, what's Tron? And I was like saying, and who were working on it, we're like, are you kidding? This is going to be huge. And it was one of their biggest catalog titles of 2002, and they didn't know. I'll bet you that they did focus group testing, especially with everything going on with Star Wars, asking, would you be excited for an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie starring Ewan McGregor? And they even probably were so overwhelmed by the enthusiastic response that they're like, well, we've been developing this movie for 4 years. It's almost ready to go. We got to have a new Star Wars movie out. Let's make another $1 billion. Why just put it on to Disney Plus when we can make $1 billion first and then put it on Disney Plus? So they know what's up, man. And I think that, you know, I read all about Bob Iger's earnings report, and what he said also, this was interesting. He said in this report that people that sign up for Disney Plus that watched The Mandalorian also watched at least 10 other pieces of content on Disney Plus. And
wow.
that's a huge factor in all this. People go to Disney Plus maybe to watch The Mandalorian, and like me, they get sucked in because it's a great service.
All right, guys, question here is, how are you feeling about this whole thing? How do you interpret this whole incredible growth that Disney Plus has had? Do you attribute a lot to the original programming, which we haven't had a lot of? Is it the library? All that kind of stuff. How do you feel that this sets Disney Plus moving forward into the upcoming streaming wars? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, with that down, let's move on to our third main topic today. And our third main topic today gets sent in to us by Evelyn, who writes, hi, John. Last year, Black Panther broke the record only at 3. That's the record for Oscar wins for a comic book-based movie, but still broke the record for most Oscar wins for a comic book movie. With Joker having 11 nominations, looking like a lock on Best Actor and Score, do you think it has a chance at breaking that record? And what are the categories that seems like a possibility? All right, thanks a lot, Evelyn, for sending that in. And yes, Joker is coming, ladies and gentlemen, to the Oscars this Sunday. And it is this Sunday, which is crazy. And Joker has just as many, wrap your head around this. Joker has just as many Academy Award nominations as Lord of the Rings Return of the King did. 11 nominations. Now, I don't expect that Joker is going to sweep all 11 like Lord of the Rings Return of the King did, but it does raise a really interesting question. How many Oscars, once we understand it's nominated for 11, can it end up winning? Can it break that record by Black Panther? Rob, we're going to go through this bit by bit here. I'm going to go out on a limb right now, and I think it's going to tie. I think it's going to tie at 3 wins. So before we go through each category here, what's your just quick prediction off the top? Will it come under? Will it tie? Will it break the record?
I think it might break the record by maybe 1, because it's technically there's a lot to love in Joker, man. I think it has a good shot at score. Well, we're going to go through them. but I
Yep.
think it could do. I think
Let's
it
do
could
that.
definitely. Yeah.
All right,
Why
we're
don't we
going to
check it
start
out?
off with the one that I think everybody believes is a lock. We're going to start off with the Best Actor category. Of course, he's up against Antonio Banderas for Pain and Glory, Leonardo DiCaprio for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Adam Driver for Marriage Story, which I believe is the dark horse that could upset him. I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying if anyone's going to upset him, it's probably going to be that. Joaquin Phoenix, obviously himself, and Jonathan Pryce, who is so good in The Two Popes. Rob, I think this is one that that Joker gets. I think Joaquin Phoenix gets this. Any doubts on that?
No, I mean, I think it's probably a good bet. I don't think anyone would say he's undeserving. That performance was one for the ages. The physicality in it truly an amazing reinvention of the character, and well deserving.
All right, so there's one. It's got one. The next Oscar it's up for is Best Adapted Screenplay. It's up against The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Little Women, and Two Popes. Rob, I see at least two films here that would probably edge it out, minimum. So I just don't see Joker. I mean, hey, awesome it got nominated, but I just don't see it winning this one. Do you?
No.
All right. So we're still at one. We move on to the next one. Best Cinematography. It got nominated for in The Irishman. It's against The Lighthouse. It's against 1917. It's against Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'll tell you what, out of the 5 nominees, I think Joker comes in 5th in this one. There's no way it's beating the cinematography for Lighthouse or 1917. I just can't see it happening. So I don't see Joker winning this one. How about you?
Nope, not at all. Not a chance in hell.
All right, so we're still sitting at 1. All right, we move on to Best Costume Design. And again, another one for The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Little Women, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Again, you know what? Hair and makeup might be a different category, but I just... Jojo Rabbit had it beat on that. The Irishman had it beat on that. Little Women had it beat on that. I think Once Upon a Time... Again, this is another one I think it might actually come in 5th, so I don't see it winning this one. Do you?
Well, I'll tell you something about this. I think you're probably right. However, they reinvented that Joker costume that when I first saw pictures of him, I was like, he's just like a clown. But I'll tell you, within the context of the movie, they must have gone through hundreds of iterations of how he was going to look as the Joker, the final form. And they did pick something that was incredibly iconic. Now, someone might say, well, it's only one costume. But I could see maybe, I don't know, because everything else is more, more period. And it was creatively, it was really a difficult choice to reinvent the character. So maybe, but you're probably right.
All right, let's move on to the next one here. Next category we're looking at is Best Director. Amazing that Todd Phillips got a nomination here. Amazing that he did, but he's not winning. He's not winning. No. So we got Martin Scorsese, Sam Mendes, who is going to win this. Quentin Tarantino, Bong Joon-ho, who maybe should win this. Bong Joon-ho. But I think this one's a lock to me. I believe Sam Mendes is taking this trophy home with the slight outside shot that Bong Joon-ho takes it. Do you think Todd Phillips has a shot at this award?
No. No, I don't.
Just definitively no. Okay.
No.
Let's move on to the next category that's nominated in. The Joker's also nominated in Best Film Editing. We've got it against Ford v. Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, and Parasite. I'll tell you what, who I would give this. To me, the award goes to Michael McCusker for Ford v. Ferrari. I thought the
100%.
editing in that was incredible. What did you think?
It's incredible. Ford v. Ferrari, I'm glad to see it got love at the Academy Awards. It was one of my favorite movies of the year. It's so entertaining, so satisfying, but by God, the editing is unbelievable.
Yeah. Now, the editing in Joker's terrific. I just don't see it. Man, the editing in Irishman was incredible. Ford v. I cannot see Jeff Groth getting it for the Joker. All right, let's move on to the next one. Next one comes to us from Best Hair and Makeup. And we got Bombshell, and man, they did a great job in Bombshell. Judy, great job in Judy. Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, which was done really well. And 1917. I'll tell you what, I think this is one Joker's got a shot in. I really do. Because it's not just Joker. It's the whole feel of every inhabitant of Gotham in that movie was so perfectly put together. Obviously, Bombshell they did a great job in Bombshell and Judy and all the rest, but I actually think this is one they've got a shot in. So this could be my second one that they pick up. How do you feel about it?
I feel the same way. And again, they had to come up with an iconic makeup that worked on screen for a long period of time. That's reinventing a character that we have such. Everybody knows what the character is, and they had to reinvent it, and that's tough. Whereas you look at Judy or Bombshell, they knew what they had to recreate, and that's not to take away with the amazing work that was done. But like you said, it wasn't just people, it was a whole milieu. They had to create Gotham City, and it had to work all the way through the film. And I think, man, that's not an easy task. So I think it has a shot.
Yeah, I don't think it's the front runner, but I mean other people do not consider it a front runner. I think it's got a shot at this one. All right, we got 4 categories left here. Best original score. We got obviously Joker. That has a really solid shot. Little Women, Marriage Story, 1917, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, with John Williams getting his 937th Academy Award nomination. For those of you who lost count, because all of us have lost count at this point. This is another one it could absolutely win. This is one that it's getting a lot of buzz. A lot of people are talking about it. Joker. I think this could be the third one, Rob. Do you see any of the other ones having a definitive head and shoulders advantage over it?
No. I think Joker's got this one in the bag. Look, she's one of the most, I think, exciting composers that's come on. She's also scored Chernobyl. What a talent. What an innovative. They're re-releasing Joker with like a live orchestra playing the score.
Nice.
So pretty amazing.
All right. Couple more to go here. Next one up is Best Picture, the big one. Of course, it's up against Ford v. Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Little Women, Marriage Story, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. I don't think it has any shot.
No.
There's about 3 or 4 that are well ahead of it in line. Totally deserving of the nomination, I think. But I don't see it having a shot. Maybe 3%. Maybe a 3% shot. Rob, what do you think of its chances for Best Picture?
None. It's not going to win.
Just simply not going to win. So
None.
There's that. All right.
No, it won't.
It won't. All right. Next one up here. Best Sound Editing. It's up against Ford v. Ferrari, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Wow. The sound in 1917 and Ford v. Ferrari were just stupid good, and very good in Joker as well, but I just don't see Joker taking this one. Do you think it has a chance?
No, I think the like you said, I mean, sound design, it's a very showy category. It always has been. And when you have 1917 and Ford v. Ferrari and even a Star Wars movie, but those two films, my God, the sound design, Joker. By the way, Joker has great sound design, but it's not as showy. It's not gonna win.
All right, and then very closely connected to sound design, or sound editing, I should say, but very unique and different, is sound mixing. And we've got Ad Astra, Ford v. Ferrari, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Again, I just don't see Joker taking this one. 1917, Ford v. Ferrari, the sound in those were incredible. Ad Astra, a movie I do not like, actually had some really good sound mixing as well, but I don't see Joker taking this one. Do you think it's got a chance at the mixing?
No, not at all.
No.
I mean, if it's not going to win usually these go hand in hand. It's very both of these awards are something that sort of are closely linked, and if Joker isn't going to win the first, it's not going to win the second.
So we're down to what we're left with then, Rob, is the 3. I think it ties Black Panther. I think it takes hair and makeup. I think it takes best lead actor, and I think it takes score. You agree with those 3, but you were also throwing in costuming, right?
Yes. And look, I understand the costuming this year on all the nominated films is it's very worthy. But again, it's the same reason I would go for makeup, is you're reinventing an iconic character in a different way. A lot of people didn't remember when they first revealed Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker, a lot of people were like, wait, what? They didn't like it. Fans were like, what is this? And yet they really did something old yet new, and to have that work was a bold choice, and it worked beautifully. And I think it's become iconic. Joaquin Phoenix's Joker's look has become just as iconic as Heath Ledger, as Jack Nicholson, and that's not easy to do because they didn't copy anything. And I think that would be the reason that I would say it could very well take this category. If it takes makeup, it could very well take costume.
So I got it tying Black Panther. You've got it beating it by 1. The question is, guys, what do you think of Joker's chances to break the Black Panther's record for most Oscars for a comic book related films? Currently the record sits at 3. Do you think it'll come in under? Do you think like me it'll tie? Do you think like Rob it'll exceed it? What do you guys think? Remember, we're not asking you what should it do. We're asking you what will it do. Jump down to the comments section below and leave us your thoughts. Okay. With that down, let's move on to our 4th and final main topic today. And our 4th and final main topic today gets submitted to us by David M., who writes, "Greetings, John. There was an investor call today with Bob Iger, which we were already talking about a little bit earlier, revealing that The Mandalorian Season 2 will come out in October. That's just 8 months away. He also suggested that they may be looking at introducing characters on the show specifically to do spin-off shows with them. Do you think this is the right idea?" All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yep, for all of us who were so sad, so very, very sad when Mandalorian ended, I still haven't gotten over it. When Mandalorian Season 1 has ended, it looks like we may not have to wait quite as long as we were thinking, as Bob Iger has revealed, not a specific date, but he did reveal that Mandalorian Season 2 is going to be coming out in October. Fabulous. Cannot wait for this show. Super excited. We know they're already shooting it. So hearing and actually having that date, Rob, it's that word tangibilization that I keep putting to it, knowing that it's got a date, that it's coming. It's very exciting. Coupled with that, though, was a comment by Bob Iger about future spinoffs and using Mandalorian to facilitate it. This is what they said. This is from an article in Variety. It says, the hit Disney Plus series may introduce new heroes and villains who will star in their own spin-off shows. Walt Disney Company Chairman Bob Iger told investors on Tuesday shortly after the company presented quarterly earnings. Iger said the company is, and I quote, exploring the possibility of infusing The Mandalorian with more characters and taking those characters in their own directions in terms of series. So that is from Bob Iger. On the one hand, that to me is like, cool, more Star Wars shows on Disney Plus. Yay! Like that's the one part of me. The other part of me, Rob, though, is a little bit more pessimistic in the sense of that it elicits ghosts of Blade Trinity. You remember Blade Trinity?
Ooh. Yeah, they made
remember
hot toys
that?
from it.
The movie they made exclusively for the idea of doing a spin-off movie series because they brought in the wonderful Ryan Reynolds and the wonderful, she's married to Justin Timberlake. Why am I forgetting her name? She's like amazing and awesome, and I'm forgetting her name right now. Anyway, I'll look it up in a second. As what were they called? The Night Hunters or the Night...
Well, there's Hannibal King.
Hannibal King, and I can't remember the name of the other character. Anyway, but the whole reason they did Blade Trinity was to bring in these new characters and to do it, to introduce them for a spinoff, and the movie itself suffered for it. Now, it would have been fine if they had just done Blade Trinity and we're going to add a couple more characters and they kept the focus on the quality of this movie and only using these characters in as much as they contribute and make the movie better. Instead, their whole philosophy was, we're setting up these characters for their own spin-off movies, and it totally shit the bed with the movie, and Blade Trinity turned out to be easily the worst film of that franchise, but one of the worst films ever. I mean, it was just horrible, horrible, horrible. And because they brought in characters specifically to set them up for their own spin-off series. Much like what happened with The Amazing Spider-Man 2. They decided we're going to use a bunch of this movie not to make the best movie possible, but to set up other stuff. And it seems to me, Rob, the more organic, better way to handle something like this is to just bring in new characters if you need them, and wait to see how they do, and wait to see how the audience responds to them. And if there's a big response to them, and if people got attached to these characters, then investigate doing spin-offs. The whole notion of, we're going to bring in these characters specifically to do spin-offs, they wouldn't be the first to do it. They won't be the last to do it. But it just, it makes me a little unsettled. I'm not saying it would be doomed to fail. Don't misquote me. I'm not saying it would be doomed to fail. It just makes me a little bit unsettled. Rob, you hear about this. Number one, your feelings on Bob Iger confirming that Mandalorian Season 2 will in fact come in October, a little bit earlier than some of us were expecting. But then what do you think about this notion of bringing in new characters specifically for setting them up for their own spinoffs? How do you see that?
Well, I think that is the way, John. I think introducing new characters
this is the way.
on the Mandalorian is perfect, because you know what Disney Plus is doing very shrewdly is they're taking Star Wars. They're, for better or for worse, Star Wars is owned by Disney. It will be now and forever owned by Disney. And the fact that they're moving forward and they're going to create their own Star Wars mythology. Obviously, the people behind The Mandalorian knew what they were doing. People really like there's characters like Cara Dune that I liked. IG-11, rest in peace, or maybe not. He's a droid. I mean, I really like what they did, and I think they're gonna venture in. It's like what they did with Star Wars Rebels, or Star Wars The Clone Wars. They create a whole new pantheon of characters. They're in a different part of the galaxy. It only makes sense. And if they're going to do spin-offs of these characters, wasn't Frasier a spin-off of Cheers or something? Why
yes,
not?
But the big difference was they didn't bring him into Cheers specifically to spin him off into his own series. They brought him in, the audience liked him, it created a thing, and then they organically spun him off into his own series.
Think that, of course, but I think that's what they're going to do. I mean, they're building a universe. And I think it, like, whether it's a shared universe, that's what Star Wars is, in fact, a shared universe. So why not? And with The Mandalorian, we have possibilities of bringing other characters that we know from previous incarnations of Star Wars, previous films. That time period, I could see Ewan McGregor, maybe showing up as a Force ghost. You never know. I mean, they could do anything with this show. And look, while I think, yes, I don't like the actual wording that Bob Iger's like, well, we're going to bring these characters in specifically to spin them off. I think maybe that was a poor choice of words. I think what he really means is we're going to expand the show and the mythology and see where it takes us. And I think he was just using the simplest terms so people could understand exactly what was up. And what is up is that, yes, they're going to take The Mandalorian and spin it. They're going to take it as far as it can go. And I'm excited. I mean, I like The Mandalorian. You could bring back Nick Nolte and do a whole backstory with that Ugnaught character. And where did he come from? Where rather than seeing it in a comic book, why not do a 4-episode Disney Plus miniseries about the origin of that character? I would watch.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you what, when the death of Kuiil, I never know how to pronounce his name. Kuiil?
Yeah, that's right.
It was like an Obi-Wan moment of, you felt a great disturbance in the force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out. Like when he died, like you could feel it across the world, right? I have spoken. Hey, you know what, guys? This is so big, I decided to make this the topic of today's question of the day. And the question of the day that I put to you guys is simply that. Here it is. Bob Iger says that The Mandalorian will be introducing new characters specifically for the purpose of spinning them off into their own series. Is this a good idea? So I put this up just before the show started, and about 1,500 of you guys have already voted, and it's close. It's really close. Right now, 47% of you are saying, yes, this is a good idea. 53% of you are saying, no, this is a bad idea. So the question I have is now for the rest of you. How do you feel about it? Are you a little bit more cautious and pessimistic like me about the notion and how they seem to be wanting to do it? Are you more optimistic about it the way Rob is right now? We want to know what you guys think. Jump down into the comments section below and leave us your thoughts. Okay, guys, with all the main topics now out of the way, we're going to move on to our live questions. Two different ways you can send in live questions, by the way, guys. Number one is to use the tip link that's in the top of the description of this video. The second way is to use the super chat feature if you want to do that, and we'll get around to your live question. Now, before we do, though, we're going to do what we do every day. Rob and I are going to take a quick 4-minute break here to stretch the legs, rest the vocal cords, go refill our drinks, give you a chance to run use the bathroom, maybe get yourself a drink as well. So hang tight, everybody. Don't go anywhere. Rob and I will be right back. everybody, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as we took a little bit of a break there. Let's now jump in and start taking your questions. We're going to get picked up off where we left off on yesterday's live questions, by the way, guys. So we're going to pick up with the ones we didn't get around to yesterday and flow right into today's questions as well. And we're starting things off with Not My Episode number 9, who writes, in The Last Jedi, Luke says that Ben fled with a handful of students after destroying the Jedi Temple, and since, for some stupid reason, they didn't end up being the Knights of Ren, my question is, did or will we ever find out what happened to those students? The thing is, Rob, I always thought, I never heard anything in the movies that said they weren't the Knights of Ren. Did you? Like, how would you answer that?
I kind of just assumed that they were. I mean, I'm sure I didn't read a comic or a fill-in novel or something to understand the backstory of the Knights of Ren, but I just kind of assumed that they were. That's why they're all called Wrens.
Yeah, I don't remember hearing, I mean, maybe I'm mistaken. I don't remember hearing anything in the movies that says otherwise. So I don't know.
We need a picture of the visual dictionary that explains all of this, and I'm sure it'll be spelled out for us immediately.
All right. Next up comes us from Carlos Sosa, who writes, hey, John, I feel like Kennedy is just using Star Wars as a podium for her political agenda. Has she ever really talked about Star Wars with passion? Yes, she has. Now, look, everybody knows I have my criticisms of Kathleen Kennedy. I personally feel she should step down. That's just me. But that being said, this is just nonsense. This whole she's got a political agenda. Like, there's all these people say, oh, she hates white men. And yet every single director of every single movie she's done with Star Wars so far have all been white men that she's put in there. I understand, you know, I've used this analogy before. The Supergirl, like if you look at Supergirl, right? You can make an argument. There's a little bit of an agenda in there. You can make that argument, I suppose, because all throughout Supergirl, the TV show, was all these speeches about, I can do this because I'm a woman and I'm a girl and being a girl means I'm powerful. And they make a lot of direct, overt statements like that. Not once in any of the Star Wars movies is there ever a single moment or time when Rey goes, I'm just a girl, but because I'm a girl, I can rise up as a woman. There's none of that in any of the movies. So I kind of reject that whole notion. I don't believe for 1 second she brought any sort of political agenda. The only political agendas in the Star Wars movie. Remember, I think Kathleen Kennedy needs to step down. This is coming from somebody who thinks Kathleen Kennedy needs to step down. But I think anybody who sees political agendas in there are only bringing their own political agendas. Just to be honest with you, that's just my point of view on it. So take it for what that means. All right, Ryan Fenley writes, Rob, who is the better manager, you or Dagnino? That's the big question, Rob.
Well, you know, Dagnino wears a cardboard box on his head while I try talking to him. That's how he manages. He manages his team basically from the inside of a cardboard box. And if you want to know who's going to dominate the Schmodown this year, the Burning Droogs, under my expert management, is going to be the team to beat. And wait till you see what we've got in store for you.
It is amazing how many managers reached out to me with like multi-million-dollar contracts to come out of retirement, but can't do it, too busy. Can't do it, too busy.
I didn't because I don't want to lose my employment here.
I knew. Yeah, you knew that. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Come on.
Next one here comes to us from John McKinney, who writes, my top 10 favorite comic book movies. One of two. 1, The Crow. Number 2, tie, Batman 1989 and Batman Begins 2005. Number 3, The Punisher. Number 4, tie, Superman 1 1978 and Spider-Man 2002. Number 2, by the way, guys, if you have a tie, then let's say you have a tie for number 1. Your next number shouldn't be number 2. Your next movie should be number 3. Tie for number 1, then that's 2, then 3. Just to let you know. Anyway, number 2, Blades 1 and 2. Number 6, The Incredible Hulk. Number 7, The X-Men Days of Future Past. Number 8, X-Men Apocalypse. Oh, I really didn't like that movie. Number 9, X-Men 1 and 2. Number 10, Batman Returns. That is a very different kind of looking list, man. You got some really, really cool films in there. 1 or 2 that I'm not really big on. Like, I admit I'm not really big on X-Men Apocalypse and what have you. But if the Punisher, I can't remember, is Punisher 2004, that's not the one. Which one am I thinking of, Rob?
Well,
the guy from Rome.
Jane.
The guy from Rome is a star of it.
That's Punisher. A
Warzone.
I want to say War Journal, Warzone. Yeah,
Warzone.
That's
That came out. That's actually my
Alexander
favorite
movie.
Punisher movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the Punisher show more than the movies, but it is. Anyway, nice job, John. Nice. I like the list, dude. All right. Finding Neo writes, Indiana should chase Nazis to Argentina or Antarctica in Indy 5. Well, Rob, that's a topic that came up yesterday. Like, what direction can they go at this point with the new Indiana Jones?
Man, I don't know. Indiana Jones is pushing 80. So basically, Indiana Jones has become his father. I don't know where they go. If anything, it would be interesting to see if it goes into the 60s, you've got things like the Cuban Missile Crisis. There's interesting things that happen. There's obviously the moon landing. There's a lot of really interesting things that happen in the 60s where Indiana Jones could be using his sleuthing skills and his intellect with bursts of action that could be really, really interesting. And as I told you, I would love to see an Indiana Jones movie with the style and the verve of Guy Ritchie's Man from U.N.C.L.E., but still being a Raiders movie. I think that the potential could be really cool. It would be a different kind of a film, but it would have to be different. It would have to be different. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull just did not work. And I don't know, man.
All right. Next up, we got Ben Rayner who writes, "Hey, John, about Kathleen Kennedy's statement, I'm all for it, but before they say yes, we'll bring female director or male director. I don't care about female, male, old, young, black, or white. Can we just get one director without drama? Why can't we get that before any quote-unquote agenda?" I mean, that's the thing that I brought up yesterday. So understanding that Kathleen Kennedy has always hired nothing but white male directors, which I don't have a problem with. I also have no problem with the fact that she's got a lot of really good female directors, and she's made a decision she wants to give one of them a shot at a Star Wars movie. That's perfectly great. However, and that might all be for naught if she just brings, because I feel bad about it, but I'm just now under the assumption that anybody she hires, that 6 months later, we're going to hear that they left because of creative differences. It has just been the pattern. Hasn't happened every single time, but it's happened a hell of a lot of times just 5 films in. So that's the thing. Of course, I'd like to see that get a little bit steadied. So I'm with you on that, Ben. All right. Dave XP writes, which franchise goes to space first? Fast and the Furious or Mission Impossible? Rob, which one goes there first?
I think Mission Impossible might, because Tom Cruise, if it goes into space, he'll do it. He'll actually go to the International Space Station and they'll do something there.
Well, in that one, in The Mummy, they actually, the way they shot that scene in the plane, which is incredible. Yeah. They actually took an aircraft that could go right to the edge of the atmosphere, right to the edge of outer space where they lose gravity, and they do all the guys. Listen, Tom Cruise will learn how to fly a space shuttle, and he will personally fly it into space. And I'm with you. I think the one that goes there first. I'm with you, Rob. I think it's going to be Mission Impossible. All right.
Yep.
Next one up comes to us from AFK Bard, who sends in a really large super chat. Thank you, AFK, for supporting the channel on that level. If an employer says that they are only going to hire a specific race or gender, say only white people or women, isn't that race/gender bias based discrimination? How can Kathleen Kennedy get away with saying woman before she even looked at credentials? She never did. She never did say woman before looking at credentials. She very specifically mentioned we're working already with a large number of female directors who are really good. I mean, that's the thing. You're making things up. She never said that without looking at credentials. She never said that. And by the way, saying one thing is nothing compared to actions. You have a Star Wars universe that has had 12 films. Every single one of them has been men. You can say whatever you want, but the proof is in the pudding. What do you actually do? Every single one has been men. So there's absolutely no basis for saying she's got a bias by finally bringing in one woman. She already made the case. She laid the groundwork. She says, we have worked with many talented female directors. She has specifically worked with a lot of female directors. She knows she's got a large pool of very talented female directors, and she just believes it's time to give one of them a shot. So, no, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. She never once said she's not looking at credentials or anything like that. You got to put that away because look at what she said. Take what she said. She said what she meant. She meant what she said. Now, remember, I'm the guy that thinks she needs to step down. But She didn't say that before looking at credentials. She specifically made the case that I know a lot of great female directors, and it's just time, after giving every single Star Wars thing ever done to a guy, it's time for us to give one of these very talented directors a shot. So that's why I have no problem with it. But again, it almost doesn't matter, because whoever she hires, man or woman, I completely believe in 6 months they're going to leave because of creative differences. So it almost don't matter. It almost don't matter. Anyway, the Halo Brony writes, John, the lights of your glasses are making 2 shadow lines from your eyes and across your cheeks like you're crying. Just something I noticed. Oh, if I do that, I do see. Like if I'm like this, I don't see. If I'm like this, it does kind of look like that. I didn't look at that. The optical illusion, it does. Like I've got dark black tears. All right, interesting observation. Tater Tots writes, okay, John, which new horror director has the best duet of films? Jordan Peele with Get Out and Us, or Ari Aster with Hereditary and Midsommar, or Robert Eggers, The Witch, The Lighthouse, and which director is your favorite so far? See, here's the problem, Tater. Rob, I don't know that I qualify The Lighthouse as a horror. I don't know if I qualify that as the horror. The Witch that was spooky as hell. I loved Hereditary, but I wasn't big on Midsommar. I love Get Out, and I like Us, but Us wasn't nearly as good as Get Out. I'm going to go Jordan Peele on that one. Rob, if you had to pick one out of those 3, which one would it be?
I'm going to go Robert Eggers, man. Ari Aster, I liked Hereditary, but it built on a lot of other things that came before, such as, say, Rosemary's Baby. And I really thought Midsommar was... there was a lot about it I liked and a lot I didn't like. Same with Us. I loved Get Out, but Us ultimately I thought just didn't work. And even though I would qualify The Lighthouse as psychological horror, it was about madness, the same way that, say, Roman Polanski's Repulsion was about madness. And I think Robert Eggers, his command of tone, and I just think as a director, I really feel that when you watch something that he makes, he's really in command of the story that he's wanting to tell. Whereas I don't feel the other directors are necessarily as disciplined, but we'll see. It's going to really be, let's see what their junior films tell us, after their freshman and sophomore outings.
Next up, ZOMG Ruler writes, should Meryl Roll be recast due to the new controversy? Listen, I got a lot to say about that, but this show is not the point. I don't get into TMZ style bullshit, nonsense. I'm not getting into that, so we're not going to address that. Casino Reviews, right? It happened again. I didn't say that about JJ. Oh, no, I got your email on that, man. Don't worry about that. Taj in Cars writes, has there ever been a halftime performance that changed your view of an artist? Mine was Bruno Mars 5 years ago. I used to crap on that guy before. You know what? That's a good one, Taj. The Bruno, like I've never had negative feelings about Bruno Mars, like nothing negative at all. Just, oh yeah, okay, there's the Bruno Mars, just like any other guy, just like any other musical artist out there. You know what? I might have to go with you on that one. The Bruno Mars one made me go, holy crap, this dude is talented. Like this dude is sick talented. So I'm going to go with you on that one. And listen, but this newest one with Shakira and J-Lo, I got to say my appreciation for both of them as entertainers went up quite a bit, because I just thought that was just a dynamic halftime show. But I got to go with you, Taj, on that one. I think Bruno Mars is a really good pick on that one. John McKinney writes, Song of the South should be renamed Splash Mountain the Movie. I don't get it. Am I missing something, Rob? Do you get it?
Well, Splash Mountain, the song in Splash Mountain is actually from Song of the South. And a lot of those characters are from, yes.
What? I've never even noticed. Yeah. That's an interesting perspective. See, I learn something new here every day. Thank you so much for that, John. All right. Suthius writes, over under 40% Fast 10 will at least feature a space shuttle. Oh, I'll go, no, 40's high. I'm going to go under 40 on that. I do believe it's a distinct possibility, Suthius, but I'm going to go 40's a little bit high, so I'm going to go under 40. Terror writes, John, you have said that everyone brings a political agenda to a movie. I don't disagree, but that also means the creators do as well. Thank you. Not necessarily, no, because listen, we as viewers, we go in as ourselves. Part of the reason why movies hit all of us in very different ways is the fact that each one of us brings different perspectives, life experiences, and certain positions in things that is unique and different from the other people beside us. I don't believe that is necessarily the same thing with storytellers. Maybe some do, but I think a lot don't. For instance, one of the examples I like to use a lot is Clint Eastwood's brilliant film, $1 Million Baby, right? In that film, near the end, and spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen this 20-year-old movie, but near the end of the film, the Clint Eastwood character decides to help this girl commit suicide. That sparked a ton of protest and outrage that, Clint Eastwood, there were protests held outside of screenings that he would be at, and I was saying, Clint Eastwood thinks people who are handicapped or paraplegic should just kill themselves, and he doesn't value the life of those people, and blah, blah, blah. When in reality Clint Eastwood wasn't trying to make any kind of a political statement. He was telling the story about a man who was in a very difficult situation, and he told the story about what that man did, not what Clint Eastwood would do. He made a story about a man found himself in a position, and he made a choice that he felt that character would make, but it's not the choice that Clint Eastwood was saying that he would make or that he would do. And I think there's too many of us try to attach that type of stuff to it as well. So I think we as audiences go in and we see things in the light of where we're at, but I don't really think that happens as much from the storyteller who try to tell different stories. Some do. There's no denying that, but I don't believe it's an every time kind of situation. All right, Jay Master writes, J-Lo's daughter Emmy, dad is Mark Anthony. That's who it was. Because I know her dad wasn't this guy. I knew it was the singer. I forgot his name was Mark Anthony. That's right. I'm excited to see Sonic over under 5%. John, Ann, Chris, Chris, and Rob go see Sonic the Hedgehog movie opening weekend. Under 5. I'm going to go under 5 on that. There's a good chance I don't see it opening weekend. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I can guarantee you it's about 0% chance that I'm going to see Sonic the Hedgehog.
Although we had a bunch of people over here the other night for Super Bowl, and that trailer came on, and my wife and Kaori were both like, I kind of want to see that. Yeah, let's go opening weekend. So my wife, and Ann and Kaori are probably going to go see it opening weekend. I probably will not. Who knows? Maybe I will. Let's see here. 50 Shades of Geek writes, I totally agree with your points on voice performance versus full body performances after thinking about it. I still prefer Conroy and Hamilton to anything else live action though. But here's the thing. I want to suggest something, 50 Shades, and I can't speak for you, so only you can answer this. But let me propose something. What you're talking about then is the character Batman in the animated series and the character of Joker in the animated series. You're not talking about Conroy and Hamill. You're talking about the characters and how they're done and how they are portrayed and what their iterations are, as opposed to the other ones, not so much as the vocal performance. So I just again, only you can answer that question. I don't know. I'm just putting that forth as a possibility. 50 Shades also writes, it took some convincing, but I finally got my mom to watch Jojo Rabbit. She hated the first half, but the second half got better and better for her. The shoe scene was everything. When the movie ended, I hugged her and told her how much I loved her. That's the kind of movie that Jojo Rabbit is. And I personally love both halves of the movie. I love the first half. I love the second half. It was just amazing to me, but that is a very special movie, especially with somebody like your mom, depending on what age range she's in right now, that could also be very, very powerful. So I'm glad you had a chance to see that with your mom. 50 Shades also writes, watching Jojo Rabbit with my mom, 2 Jews in a foreign country with my head still recovering from surgery was such a powerful moment for both of us. The power of movies, man. The power of movies. Also, fuck Hitler. Well said. 50 Shades also write, I hope it's not a spoiler. I think that was in the trailer, but my mom's favorite moment in Jojo Rabbit was 3, 2, 1 swastika made her laugh the hardest. I don't even remember that moment. Which is kind of interesting. 50 Shades also writes, this might have already been answered, but Scarlet Witch's kids are Wiccan and Speed. Okay, I remember Wiccan was one of them. All right. Totally a not interesting name. Wiccan sounds much cooler. Not surprised you couldn't remember it. I forgot since writing the previous sentence. So Rob, we were talking the other day about that spot and the fact that they have 2 cradles and stuff like that. Somebody suggested to me in the comments that, that's actually a throwback to Full House, since one of the characters on Full House had twins. I think it's more of a reference to the comic line where her and Vision do have kids. Do you have an opinion one way or the other? Do you think they're going to kind of foreshadow or at least do a little cameo or wink of the eye to the audience about the twins? What do you think they're going to do there?
Well, look, I understand that it's Elizabeth Olsen and people can make those parallels, but I think it's absolutely referring to the comic books. I mean, the whole idea of Vision and Scarlet Witch's relationship has been developed over decades. And they have a very complicated history. And I think that even delving into the fact that Scarlet Witch is going to have a relationship with Vision on a Disney show, that in itself is pretty edgy as far as it goes. And I think it's absolutely referring back to the comics. That's why the Marvel Cinematic Universe is so successful, is they take their cues from the actual Marvel comic universe, and they're pulling things from years and decades of continuity. And that's what I think they're absolutely doing. And that's why I was delighted by seeing everything I saw.
All right. Next up, 50 writes, my favorite Super Bowl trailer was for SpongeBob. I love that they were making fun of Super Bowl ads being so expensive, and it totally fits with Mr. Krabs' character. I know nothing about SpongeBob SquarePants. I know nothing about it. I have no idea who Mr. Krabs is. I don't really know. I didn't personally think the trailer was all that good, but I know a lot of people did. I got some friends of mine on a chat thread on text that really do like it, and they're really looking forward to SpongeBob. I'm just the odd guy out there. 50 also writes, the Sonic the Hedgehog trailer was the best piece of marketing I've seen for the movie, but that's not saying much. I've lost hope for the movie a long time ago, but I'll still watch it, hoping it's as good as this Super Bowl trailer. I completely agree. I think this trailer was the best piece of marketing they've put out so far. And I also agree that that's not saying much. This movie looks fucking stupid. This movie looks dumb as hell. That being said, there have been times when all of us, including me, have seen movies that look dumb as hell, and then we go in and watch them and really enjoy them. And maybe Sonic will be one of them, but I do agree this was the best one they've done so far. Then 50 also writes, by the way, John, seeing Jojo Rabbit in Turkey, the movie was advertised at 21:15. Commercials trailers started at 21:13. Movie started at 21:22. Not perfect, but still better than most places, right? Dude, listen, I would kill to, in North America, have a movie actually start just 7 minutes after the start time instead of the 30 minutes after start time that we traditionally get right now. So actually, it sounds like Turkey's doing it right, man. Sounds like Turkey's doing it right. All right, Jonah writes, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull had a pretty high 78% of Rotten Tomatoes. Critics seem to like it. So why does everybody hate this movie? Rob, I mean, I mentioned the other day, dude, that as you take away the name Indiana Jones, I actually think Crystal Skull's a nice, fun little adventure film. It's just not an Indiana Jones film. And that's why I can see a lot of people, maybe critics kind of liking it, but it is an Indiana Jones film. It didn't work at it. Maybe that's why they don't. I don't know. What's your theory on that?
Dude, I keep going back to the Red Letter Media review of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I understand where they were coming from, but it just feels it feels so schizophrenic to me. I mean, on one hand, there's a lot of interesting scenes. Like, I do love the scene where it's on Harvard, wherever he's teaching, the motorcycle chase that goes through campus. Yeah. I thought was an interesting, innovative moment. And I liked that sequence, but then it just spun off. There's so much silliness going on. And I think the latter half of the film, the first half of the film, I actually quite enjoy. It goes nowhere, and it winds up in this morass of idiocy that I think is just silly. It just gets just goofy and silly. And
so let me ask you, why do you think it is that a lot of critics still kind of enjoyed it on that level, even though like it just didn't work as an Indiana Jones film?
You know what? I think a lot of critics, when it comes to franchise properties like Indiana Jones, don't really necessarily look at them with the kind of critical eye that they should look at, or they use to look at other films. They just think, oh, it's the fourth Indiana Jones movie. We don't have to examine it and put our critical acumen towards it the way we would, say, The Irishman. And I think that's a mistake. And I think that the Indiana Jones series, especially Raiders, is a near perfect movie. And it set out to recreate the serials, the days of yore, and it did such a brilliant job, but yet it exists. It creates a great new character, a great new milieu, great new villains. It's beautifully photographed. It's a hell of a time at the movies. And I think that one of the failings of Crystal Skull is that it doesn't live up to the promise of what Raiders started out. I mean, it's a franchise that had fallen so far that I think critics should be the first people to take a movie like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull to task.
So not the possibility that they just liked it?
You know what? I don't see how you can. I don't see how you could look at a movie like Raiders and then compare it to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and say, oh, I like this movie, because it betrays everything that Raiders did so well. And I just think it was weird and goofy and lazy. And you even watch Steven Spielberg talk about it, and he's like, well, it's what George wanted. Even he's not convinced, and he directed it.
All right. Next up, we got Initial D's writes, one of two. Hey, John, it's been a while. Regarding the Sonic movie, I heard you say for months now that his redesign isn't going to make it better. The people who wanted it never said the movie looked bad, had a problem with who said it looked bad, had a problem with the script. They liked the trailer, the premise. It doesn't look bad or stupid to them. The only problem was that how Sonic looked. Now he's fixed, all is well. Obviously, we'll find out soon how much people really wanted to see this. Sorry if you already knew this, just mentioning. No, listen, the trailers were stupid and idiotic and bad. And it's all subjective. There are going to be some people that thought the trailers looked fine. The problems with this movie, look, the redesign of the character is not going to make the movie any better. And if it's great, it's not going to make the movie any worse. It's an aesthetic. An aesthetic is not going to make a bad movie good, and it's not going to make a good movie bad. It'll affect your enjoyment a little bit depending on what they do with it, for sure. But my basic principle was that changing the design of the character is not going to make a bad movie good or make a good movie bad. You can be happy with a redesign of a look. That's great. There's nothing, yeah, absolutely. Like you can redesign a superhero's costume so it looks better, and that will make you happy, and it would make me happy. And that's great. But the redesign of the costume of the character isn't going to make, if it's a bad movie, it's not going to suddenly make it a good movie, or vice versa. And that's kind of the whole point that I've been making. And this movie looks absolutely fucking stupid. It did from trailer one. It looks fucking stupid now. But again, there are many films, you guys know, that I've gone into going, wow, this movie looks fucking stupid. And then I go see it and I come out and going, you know what? I really had fun with it. Maybe this will be the next one that does that. I know my wife is going to try to get me to go out to see it too. So, listen, that's why when you go to the movies, you take your expectations and you leave them at the door. Whether your expectations are super high or super low, you take those expectations and you leave them at the door. And you go in and you just watch the movie and experience the movie by its own merits. And that's why so many times we think a movie looks great and we come out and think it was bad, or we think a movie looks terrible and we come out and we think it's great. Maybe Sonic will be one of those. But for now, it looks bloody awful. It looks bloody awful. For now. Let's see how we feel about it later, though. All right, Amin writes, which scene will they show for Joaquin at the Oscars? Who knows? Anybody's guess. No, I don't even have a random guess for that one, Amin. All right, Jonathan Teft writes, R.I.P. Gene Reynolds, the co-creator of my favorite show of all time, MASH. He passed away at 96. Do you have any fond memories of MASH or a favorite episode? The ending of Abyssinia, Henry, will always be one of the most heartbreaking moments in television. I remember, so MASH was a show that was a little bit before my time, Rob, but I used to watch a lot of reruns and things like that. The final episode of MASH, the series finale, for the longest time held the all-time record for most viewed episode of television like ever. And I've seen it a number of times where it's just so great. One of the characters flies away in a helicopter and the other character writes out on the ground, goodbye. And it was just like powerful and wonderful. And there was one of the moments where one of the main characters in the show does die. It was like one of the first times in American television where one of the main characters dies in the show. And that was like breaking history. So, and then MASH, of course, started out as a movie. It's still to this day is one of the most popular, well-executed comedies set in wartime, like of all time. It's an iconic one. So, Rob, your memories and thoughts about MASH.
MASH was something when I was growing up. This is going to seem strange, but it meant something to me the same way that Star Trek meant something to me. That even though it was a comedy, it was a sitcom, it had a lot to say, and you had a group of people that were trying to do good in the middle of the Korean War. And it really felt like I felt it was a very smart show. The humor was very elevated, and it really it sometimes you would have incredibly dramatic instances in the middle of what was supposed to be a sitcom, and I felt the show was one of the best I ever saw growing up. And sometimes it was a little, I mean, I was still young when I was watching it, but I love that show. And Suicide is Painless, the song that opens the series, every episode is just indelibly burned into my brain. And I have only the fondest memories of MASH. And if you go back, and I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, it makes me want to go back now that I'm thinking about it, go back and watch. But it is easily one of the best television series of all time. It really is.
And it did a very rare thing in that the television series was so good, like that people forget it was a reboot or spinoff, if you will, of a feature film.
Yeah,
with
Robert
Donald
Altman
Sutherland and
film. Yep.
It's just it, and that's very rare because when people think of, let's say X-Files, they don't think of the X-Files movies that were spun off and continuation from the series. They think of the series. You know what I mean? This series was so good, it made a lot of people forget that there was even a MASH movie before it. I mean, I really can't think of any other example. I mean, there might be other examples. I can't think of another example that's like that, where the reboot, follow-up, spin-off thing outshone the originating thing. And to think about that, Rob, especially at the time, it was a comedy that was happening in the midst of war and pain and death and tragedy. And they just somehow found a way to make it work. And Alan Alda became a national treasure, and kind of is what it is. And thank you for bringing that up, Jonathan, about the passing of Gene Reynolds. Good on you for doing that. And thanks for that, dude. Really appreciate that you did that. All right. Devontae Brown writes, Saw spinoff actually looks really good. Even has the music. I'm telling you, dude, I'm impressed by it. Like anybody else, I was like, really? Chris Rock doing Saw? I love Chris Rock, but doing Saw? I'm with you, man. I thought this looks really good. Mark Dawson writes, saw the rhythm section yesterday. It was meh. Mark Burnell, the author of the novel, was the sole credited screenwriter, and this is the first time he has ever written a screenplay. It shows. Just something else that contributed to its poor showing, in my opinion. Rob, I've said for a while that writing a novel and writing a screenplay are two different things, and something that works in a book does not necessarily work in a screenplay. We saw J.K. Rowling herself having struggles coming out with the Fantastic Beasts movies, deciding to write the screenplay herself, and there were struggles with that. Is it just not a good idea for the novel writer to also try to write the screenplay for a movie?
No, I think there's been a lot of novel writers that have written great screenplays over the years.
But of their own novels?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Really?
Didn't Gillian Flynn write the screenplay for Gone Girl?
You know what? That's a great example. That's a great example.
Yeah, I mean that's just a late. There's been a lot of look. Anybody writing a screenplay is hard for anyone, and adapting a book is always going to be difficult. But I think there's been a lot of novelists who've done a great job of it. But it's rough. There's been a lot of people who've tried to adapt books that haven't done it very well. But I don't think it's necessarily problematic. But it's hard. You know, I mean, Stephen King wrote the screenplay for the original TV miniseries of The Stand, and I actually thought he did a pretty good job. I think the only shortcomings, I'm a huge fan of that miniseries. The only shortcomings are the budget. You know, if they had a much bigger budget, I think it would have been better. And again, look, it's hard. It's hard. You definitely, it's a skill, but I don't think it's always a bad idea. I think sometimes it can be a great idea.
All right, let's move on here. Next one up is Eric Silva Gomez writes, is Marlon Brando as Vito Corleone in your top 10 performances of all time? No. Actually, it's not even my all-time. I don't even think it's the all-time greatest Marlon Brando performance, to be honest. But at any rate, also, Bryan Cranston as Walter White is in my top 10 list. Bryan Cranston is great as Walter White. My number one, I'll tell you what my number one is, though. My number one all-time, I needed a little bit of time for this to really sink in because I thought it might be when I first saw it. Honestly, I think my number one all-time favorite performance by an actor in a motion picture is probably Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood. I mean, the more I think about every time I go back and watch it, I sink more and more into him in that. Rob, if I had to put you on the spot, dude, and say, just off the top, do you have one performance that you would say, this is my personal favorite performance of all time from an actor in a motion picture?
Yes. And you know who that is? Well, actually, there's a couple that come to mind. First of all, as soon as you said that, Roy Scheider in All That Jazz is one of my Peter O'Toole in The Stuntman. I think Betty Davis in All About Eve. I can't get enough of those. I mean, I could go through and list so many, but off the top of my head, Roy Scheider and all that jazz, just it I don't know why. That was the first thing that popped into my head. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's one of the most influential films on me on a number of different levels, and that was the first thing I thought of. I don't think he won Best Actor. I think he was nominated for that, though.
All right. Next up, Captain Chicken Pants writes, I'm in New York at the moment from the UK. Enjoy your visit there, dude. Going to see The Gentleman soon. Nice movie. And then finishing off the evening at Madison Square Garden to see the Rangers play the Maple Leafs. Dude, then you're seeing a Toronto Maple Leafs game more this year than I'm going to have a chance to see a Toronto Maple Leafs game. So enjoy your time. Hey, listen, a hockey game in Madison Square Garden is no joke, man. Go and enjoy yourself. All right. Josh Bing writes, hey, John. I think the phrase justice for Han refers to how the character and his legacy were treated post Fast 7 instead of actually in-universe justice. I think people wanted to see a pound of flesh from the Jason Statham character. Listen, I think a lot of people got very upset, Rob. And this is how we saw it play out. This especially got a lot of people upset when it became revealed in that Fast and Furious movie that Shaw was now one of the good guys, and everybody just seemed to forgive and forget the fact that he had killed one of their guys. And then they gave him his own spin-off movie with The Rock. And because Justice for Han didn't really get rolling until it became apparent and we saw as an audience that Jason Statham's character in Fast 8 was being rolled into the family. The guy who killed, and that's really when you heard the Justice for Han thing become a big deal. Rob, do you think it was more of just a philosophical thing that we want to see Han treated better? Or do you kind of see it the way I did, that it was really more specific about the fact that they're embracing the dude who killed him? I don't know. How do you see it?
Well, I think it's kind of a combination of both, but really, you know, the Shaw brothers were set up as being villains, and they're murderers. I mean, the scene where Deckard Shaw visits his brother in the hospital and then apparently murders a bunch of people that were in that hospital, he's a really bad guy. And this idea that Han was a beloved character, they brought him back in 4, 5, and 6, and people liked him. And let's face it, he's an Asian dude who winds up with Gal Gadot at the end, and because she of course passes away. I mean, talk about representation. There were so many people that respected Han. I mean, come on, the man scored Gal Gadot. He scored Wonder Woman. He's the coolest Korean dude who ever lived, man. I just loved Han because he was such like the old gunfighter character. And I really thought that for me, the reason I loved Han so much is because he had it so dialed in Tokyo Drift, that I felt that, yes, when Shaw became part of the family and you see Dom literally hugging him at the end of Fast, is it 7 or whatever? And they're all, I'm like, come on, man. You know, you had a brother that was murdered by this guy. Apparently he wasn't. Maybe they knew something we didn't. Maybe it's been a long con the whole time trying to get it over on Cypher or whoever. But it just, it felt like a reversal in this franchise that disrespected the franchise, because it felt like all these characters that you were following were very disingenuous. And at the end, you're like, wait a minute, man. I understand Jason Statham is a box office draw, but you've now betrayed your entire franchise by making it look like these characters are callously disregarding the death of one of their own.
Well, now, to be fair, you rescue somebody's baby, a lot can be forgiven. You'll forgive a lot if somebody rescues your baby. That
is true. That is true. But I felt that, you know, again, it's still, just because you've done something good doesn't absolve you of your sins. and yeah, you rescued somebody's baby, but you also murdered one of your best friends. The guy also murdered, and I understand. Okay, maybe you can atone, but it's we're even. Don't sit down and let's have a barbecue at my house.
Forgive and forget. You got to move on. You got to let it go, Rob. Let it go. Move on. Bygones be bygones. Hashtag Han had it coming. All right. One more here we'll take with Rob here, and then we'll let Rob get going and do his thing for the day. Phil Corvelli writes, "Hey, John. Hey, Rob. I recently saw 1917. Holy shit, the cinematography in that film is some of the best I've ever seen, and the acting was great. Hope it wins Best Picture. Rob, you and I both think it will win Best Picture. Are we both also kind of in agreement that it wins cinematography? Do you think it deserves that one, cinematography as well?"
Yes. Don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think there are a couple there that I could probably do well, but just the whole approach to the cinematography in 1917, the whole idea of making it look like one big continuous tracking shot. Obviously it's not, but the way they made it feel that way was just inspired.
Well, it's not just that. It's each individual shot that they used. It's what's happening in those shots.
Yeah.
It's
the way it's all composed.
Movement, the blocking and the lighting, like when the flames are burning at night. I mean, there's just, it really is, there is such a painterly quality and the conception, these long shots, understanding what's going to happen, the physics of these shots and the focus pulling. If you looked at the BAFTAs, when Roger Deakins won, he spent his entire speech thanking his camera crew, his grip and electrical department, his longtime focus pullers. He thanked everybody that was involved in actually making each one of these shots. And I thought that was one of the classiest things I ever saw anybody do at any award show, because a camera department is a large department, and it's not just one guy. It's a team. And man, just for that BAFTA speech he gave, I've always loved Deakins, but it made me love him even more. What a class act he is.
And on that note, we're going to say goodbye to Robert Meyer Burnett today. Robert, thank you so much for being here, as always, shining the sunshine of your brilliance on all of us to be warmed in the glow of your glory. Now, Rob, in the meantime, dude, where can people find you online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations, the show about something.
All right, dude, thanks a lot for being here. We'll see you back again here soon. Have a great day, my friend.
All right, you too.
Guys, and we're going to keep on moving here with your questions. We still have about 20 minutes to go here. I think we can get through all of them here, so let's keep things rolling right now. And we're going to pick things up here with Unwise Woe. I like that name, writes, "Yo, John, I'm probably late to the party, but I've just seen the trailer for Fast 9. Oh my God, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. Hoo-ha!" Listen, I'm torn right now because I didn't love the Fast 9 trailer for a couple of reasons, but I didn't love it. But the 2 days before the trailer came out, they put out a 1 minute scene. They put out like a 1 minute clip that I loved more than most people. Like, I thought that 1 minute clip was fantastic and had a different level to me than we're used to seeing in a Fast and Furious movie. So I actually ended up loving that 1 minute scene they showed more than most people. And then I didn't like the trailer as much as most people. So who knows? Maybe once we get into the movie and we see it all in context, it all makes sense to me. But it did get, hey, listen, the job of a trailer is to get people talking, man. And you cannot deny that Fast 9 trailer has got people talking for sure. All right, we move on now. Mark C. writes, "John, the Disney Plus subscription number means nothing because every Verizon customer gets a free year. I think this issue should be tabled until this time next year when the free year runs out." Well, couple quick points of order. Not every Verizon, actually, it's a very limited number of Verizon customers. It's a very specific, you have to fall into a very specific thing. I know most of my friends who are Verizon things didn't qualify, they couldn't get it. Secondly, that was taken into consideration when they did their projections that they would hit 20 million subscribers by the end of 2020. That was all part of the equation. Also, any service, whatever, always have some kind of special promotional issues that, for instance, Apple TV, if you buy an Apple product, in the last 6 months, you get a free year of Apple TV. That gets figured into their numbers as well. And yet, they've far exceeded their numbers. So no, I have to completely disagree with you, Mark. It does mean something because it was taken into consideration. It is a limited number of people who were able to qualify for it. And even though it was taken into consideration with their expectations and projections, it still blew those projections out of the water. And again, look at Apple. They had a big free promo too. A lot of people buy Apple products. And if you bought one within the previous 6 months, you get free Apple TV for a year. And they still stagger way behind the Disney Plus number. So it absolutely is significant. And it absolutely means something. It really, really does. Rocco G67 writes, have you seen the Canadian show Letterkenny? We've talked about it many times on here because I think it's hilarious. And what are your thoughts on it? I was actually introduced to it because of somebody writing in on the show. A number of months ago. Somebody wrote in and talked to me about Letterkenny. I'm like, okay, I'll check it out. And I loved it. It is a freaking hilarious show. In the States, I believe it's on Hulu. In the US, I believe it's on Hulu. So, but it's a Canadian original show. It is desperately hilarious. I couldn't believe it. Now, the reason I didn't know about it is because it came out long after I moved away from Canada, so I'm not there to see it on the networks, right? But yeah, it's a funny show. If you guys have not checked it out, take Rocco's advice here, guys. Check out Letterkenny. It is a very, very funny show. All right. Philip Dax writes, what are your thoughts on Terrence Malick? Listen, he is one of the, and I use this word very specifically, he is absolutely one of the most interesting filmmakers in the business. Because you look at his filmography, and we've talked about it on the show before. We've talked about Terrence and his filmography. It's like, you at the very minimum, you just can't get away. He is one of the most interesting filmmakers out there. Alex Riz writes, Harley Quinn, 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, we saw from the early reactions that came out the other day, they were all looking pretty damn glorious, and I'm looking forward to seeing this thing, at least a lot more than I was before. Let's see how it turns out. Unwise Woe writes, yo, John, I decided to get a Regal Unlimited. Good for you, man. Been a huge movie fan since I was a kid, and I miss going to the movies. Prepare to start getting more movie questions from the Unwise Woe. What double feature would you suggest first? Well, I mean, if you've got it now, it all depends on what's still playing. So if you're going out tonight, for example, so like Harley Quinn isn't on the table. If it's still playing, if you have a chance to see JoJo and 1917, that's what I would suggest. I would suggest JoJo 1917 if that's what's playing near you, but only you know it's playing near you. But listen, if you live anywhere near an AMC, if you're a movie fan, you owe it to yourself to get the AMC A-list. It's just going to get you out to the movies more and save you a crap ton of money. If you live near Regal Cinemas, the Regal Unlimited isn't quite as good as the AMC plan, but it is a great plan nonetheless. If you live near Regal and you got Regals near you, get yourself a Regal card because, I mean, like, listen, I go to a lot of movies anyway, but I've lost track. For the first little while that I had my AMC A-list, I was keeping track of how much money I was saving every time I go to the movies, like every time Ann and I go, but I just lost track. I mean, it is crazy. And it creates an economical model for you that you can actually afford to go to the movies more. Because for me, where I live and the prices of movies where I live, going to one movie almost covers my entire month cost for owning A-list. One movie comes within $3 or $4 of covering the entire cost for a month of A-list. I use that damn thing 7 to 12 times a month. 7 to 12 times a month I use it. Now, I'm lucky I've got 3 big AMC theaters within about a 15-minute walk of my place, but man, I put that thing through its use. If you go to 2 or 3 movies a month, take Unwise Woe's example and follow it. Get yourself an AMC A-list. Get yourself a Regal thing. If you live near Cinemark, they've got a really nice little movie club plan as well that can save you a bunch of money. These are just simply the best things to happen to movie fans in a long time. So I'm glad you got it, Unwise Woe, and I look forward to seeing more messages from you, buddy. All right. Hawes Fam TV, Birds of Prey, 88% on Rotten Tomatoes. Can't wait for tomorrow. Well, let's see where it is at right now. I'm going to bring it up here right now. Let's see. Birds of Prey, Rotten Tomatoes, blah, 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 blah. As of right now, at this moment right now, Birds of Prey and the Fabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn is sitting at, with 53 reviews counted, 91%. 91% right now, guys. This is a movie I've had no interest in. At least not the way I was interested in a Black Adam movie or Wonder Woman 84, things like that. I have really had no interest in this Harley Quinn movie, and frankly, I think it's looked bad. But then we heard the reactions come from it, and it's all really positive. We're looking, it's got a 91 right now, which is super positive. So, like, this is why, guys, you got to take whatever your expectations are, leave them at the door. So I'm actually kind of excited to see it now. Kind of excited to see it. I wasn't before, but I am now. All right, Justin writes, Birds of Prey is currently sitting at 92. Well, as of right now, it's 91. Currently sitting at 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. Thoughts? Will it succeed? Does the RT score affect your opinion? Well, not my opinion, but my expectations, yes. Doesn't change my opinion because I haven't seen the movie yet. I have no opinion about the movie. I've had expectations, and my expectations for Birds of Prey have been very low. It just is what it is. I saw no purpose for making this movie. I love Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn and everything, but yeah, and I don't think the trailers have looked all that particularly good. But then we heard those first social media reactions. It's like, and from some people that I really trust. It's like, really? It's that good? Now we're seeing the full reviews dropping. I got to say, it hasn't affected my opinion, but it has affected my expectations. So I actually now find myself kind of looking forward to seeing it tomorrow night. All right, Jen Smiloden. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing your name, Jen. Forgive me. I'm the worst in the world at trying to pronounce names. Hey, John and company. Hope you're having a fantastic week. I am so far. Thank you very much. As you were going over Joker's Oscar nominations, including Best Sound Editing and Best Sound Mixing, I was just wondering what the difference between the two is. Could you clarify? Thanks. Okay, so in very basic layman's terms, sound editing is the actual sounds that you hear, right? It's the actual sounds that you hear and the thing that the sound editing artists, the processes they go through to create the sounds that you hear in the film. From the vocal dialogue, the feet walking across the concrete, eerie sounds off in the woods, and blah, blah, blah. Sound editing. Sound mixing is a very different discipline that is, because believe me, when you hear a well sound mixed movie and a badly sound mixed movie, you know that, which is basically taking all the sound elements and putting them together, assembling them together in just the right way and at just the right levels to make a very pleasant and proper listening experience. So the sound editing is creating all those sounds and bringing all those sounds together and what's everything going to sound like. The mixing is now taking all those elements that sound editing did and putting it together, leveling it all out, giving it the right mix and all that kind of stuff. So they are very closely associated, but they are also very distinct from each other. Anyway, that is the cheap 1 nickel version explanation that you'll find much better explanations online, but I hope that made it a little bit more clear, Jen. I hope it did at any rate. Thank you for asking the question. All right. Dirk Walker writes, in Mando Season 2's defense, Civil War introduced 2 new characters specifically for spin-offs, and that worked great. I trust the showrunners to execute well. Actually, that's not true. That's not true. Remember, Civil War, the Black Panther, they told this story from the stage at the MCU Phase 3 big announcement event that I was lucky enough to be at. But at first, Black Panther was a character. Kevin Feige talks about this. Black Panther was a character he had been eyeing bringing into the MCU years before they ever did it. Years and years and years before they ever did it. When they were first conceptualizing Civil War, the notion of it was they needed a replacement initially for Spider-Man. Because if you know the Civil War comic book, Spider-Man has a very central part, and there's this iconic image out there of Iron Man on one side and Captain America on the other, basically playing tug of war with Spider-Man, right? Because Iron Man and Captain America in the comics are the representatives of the 2 different sides of the issue. So he was initially brought in for that. Spider-Man, when that became a possibility, it was a very, very limited character. Remember, Spider-Man is essentially in 3 scenes in Civil War. He really is not in Civil War very much at all. And so they thought that was a great way to introduce the character to the MCU while also having this very iconic figure who is a part of the Civil War lore and the Civil War comic story to actually get him in there. So there was multiple motivations there. They didn't rewrite things around any other character just so we could launch a character, like in a television show and television series. And by the way, it was all part of the same ongoing story, right? And they already knew the roles that they need to play. The MCU is a very unique thing in that way. But then you go and look at the way it was handled with, again, Blade Trinity, where they fundamentally wrote their story in order to facilitate the introduction of new characters. And it's almost like the launching of this new series took precedence over making this movie as good as you could with Blade Trinity, right? In Civil War, I never felt once like they deviated from the Civil War story in order to facilitate new characters just for the sake of doing their own thing. It always felt like that. No, it was very organic. It was a part of it. So that's why I'm saying it's not that it won't work in Mandalorian. It's just that it makes me nervous. When I hear Bob Iger say, you know what? I think we're just going to throw some characters in just so we can spin them off. See, that's different than, like, say, the situation that Rob brought up, like the Frasier and Cheers. Frasier was just brought in to Cheers to be a part of Cheers, to make Cheers great, and then organically they spun him off. So it all depends on how they approach it and how they do it. So I'm not saying here it can't work. I'm not saying it can't work. I'm just saying it makes me a little bit nervous. Just makes me a little bit nervous. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. All right. Jeffrey Hempful writes, Idris Elba was chatting with the electronically disguised voice of Kurt Russell in Hobbs and Shaw. Will be resolved in F10. Oh, so you think that's Kurt Russell? That's not a bad theory. See, some of us had the theory that it was Han, that Han was the big bad guy, the Dr. Claw in the background. Gadget. Yeah, you know, that he was the big evil voice, but that didn't make sense. It didn't line up time-wise, unless Han has been a villain the whole time, which I don't think that's the case. The Kurt Russell character, Jeffrey, that's not a bad theory. I like that's not a bad one. I dig that one. All right, just a couple minutes left here, guys. Thomas writes, Hey, John, big fan of the show. Thank you so much, man. I went to see The Gentleman last night, and I really enjoyed it. And I remember a topic you guys did, and it was that the movie theaters play too many trailers. And I agree with you. My theater does it too. Thank you very much. Again, it is, look, I love the movie-going experience. Love the movie-going experience. But it is a frustration every single time that I go to a movie that says it starts at 7 o'clock and I pay to go in there, whether it's for me paying for my AMC A-list and I get to go, or I just have to buy a ticket to go to ArcLight or buy a ticket to go to Regal Cinema. I've paid to be there for a show that you told me is at 7 o'clock and it doesn't start till 7:28, 7:30, 7:32. That is a real frustration. And that's for me as somebody who loves going to the movie theaters. You know, it is something that frustrates casual moviegoers probably even more. It is absolutely something they need to fix, Thomas, and I'm sorry that you had that experience. All right. Final question today, and then we'll pick up on the rest on tomorrow's show, guys. James Hopkins writes, if we don't see the Wayne's death scene again in the new Batman, we are already on the right track, but I'm worried they will do to Batman what they did to Superman in the Supergirl show. Oh, I have no worries about that. This is the Batman show. They're not going to job Batman to somebody in this at all. And again, my feelings on it are not going to be the same as everybody else's. Should they show the Wayne's death in this Batman movie when we've already seen the Wayne's death 1,000 times? By the Waynes, I mean Bruce's parents. Would vote to not show it again. That's my vote. That being said, if Matt Reeves decides that in order for us to truly understand emotionally where our Batman character, Bruce Wayne character, or Robert Pattinson character is right now in this moment in this scene, if Matt Reeves feels to emotionally resonate with the audience and to get the audience to emotionally properly attach to what's going on in this scene, We need for them to experience what's going on in his head. And if that requires a brief flashback to the death of his parents, if it is to serve the story and to serve the scene and increase our emotional attachment to the scene once and quickly and briefly, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Because it's one thing for us to know in principle, yeah, we know the Waynes died in a crime alley. We know that. It's one thing to know that, but it might be a different thing though, if we're going to truly get into the head and into the shoes of the character in a moment to understand emotionally where they're at, to have a brief flashback, don't play out another 5-minute scene of the death of, the Waynes, but a brief flashback to that just to get us into the character's shoes a little bit, then I'd be okay with that. Again, my vote, no showing their death again. But if it serves the emotional integrity of a scene that he wants to do, go ahead and do it, and I'm okay with it. As long as it's kept short. All right. Listen, for everybody else still waiting to get their questions answered, Jarrett Shirley, Mark C., Not My Episode 9, and all the way up, do not worry, guys. We are going to get to your questions first on tomorrow's show. We will get to your questions first, and they will be the first ones to get answered on tomorrow's show. By the way, guys, between now and then, you can start sending in your questions for tomorrow's show now if you want. You can go ahead and use that tip link that's at the top of the description of this video. Don't forget, tomorrow is No Pants Thursday. It's going to be me, Chris Carr, and Aaron Cummings in here. That's always a little bit of a wild circus ride having the three of us in the same room. So make sure you guys come back and join us for that. That will do it for me for now, guys. Listen, thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett again for being here today and sharing his glorious insights with all of us. And a special thanks to all of you guys who sent in questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also because you supported the channel while you were doing it. And all of us here on the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you very, very much for that. That will do it for me for now, guys. Thank you so much for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, friends, bye-bye.